Well, how are you today? It's a blessing to connect up with you today. This is Flame of Truth again. I'm Pastor Dan Smith. I'm the senior pastor down in the Garden Grove Church in Southern California in Orange County. But every once in a while, I get the chance to come here to LLBN and come to you wherever you are, anywhere in the world, and say something. Now, we're going through the Old Testament. And we called it Old Testament Challenge, and we got some of it from Willow Creek years ago. Just a blessing to go through the highlights, stories, and passages, and book by book of the Old Testament. And today we're going to do the Psalms and why bad things happen to good people. But I'm thrilled today because probably my favorite group that I ever get to hear, but they're all good, but I love this group from Soweto in South Africa called No Limits. And they're going to sing a wonderful song, There's a Land. Enjoy this.
There's a land, very beautiful land, where there's no more sorrow, no more pain. Troubles last only for a while. Soon we'll reach that land, very beautiful land. How I long to be in that land, beautiful, beautiful land. All my cares are left behind when I'm in the beautiful land. No more sorrow, no more cares, no more tears and no more fears. No more sorrow, no more cares, no more tears and no more fears. There's a land that's fairer than day, and by faith we can see it from afar. For our Father waits over the way to prepare us a dwelling place there. There's a land that's fairer than day, and by faith we can see it from afar. For our Father waits over the way to prepare us a dwelling place there. Beautiful land. tears and no more fears. No more sorrow, no more cares. Oh, no more tears and no more fears. No more sorrow, no more cares. No more tears and no more fears.
Was that good or what? I could listen to them all day. I love just that African gospel sound. I've been able to do a week of prayer down there at Salusa University in Zimbabwe, and they had a lot of music, just that sound. Just terrific. Anyway, no limits. Thanks a lot. Now the book of Psalms. Of course, we are wrestling with the issue of good and evil. I don't know how you relate to all of this. I'll just tell a couple of things. I just got back from the Philippines a couple days ago. I'm still jet lagged. Maybe you can hear it in my voice. Anyway, I have been to the Grand Catholic Cathedral downtown in Manila. And I read the little plaque there on the front as they described 5 times over the last 300 years that cathedral has been burned down, destroyed by war, or whatever, and they had to rebuild it. And now this is the 6th one, which means every one of those times a Catholic priest working for God had to come down to see his church in the morning and realize that he was going to have to start all over again. I'm sure they had no insurance all those years. And have to gather all his poor people together, these are not rich people, and say, we got to build it again. And over 30 or 40 or 50 years, bring the cathedral back up. 6 times. Not right. Then we walked down the street. The Filipino that was with me is Ernesto Pascual, was in my church before. And he tells about when he was a little boy in the Philippines, his father worked at a place that is now called AUP, Adventist University of the Philippines. Choir has sung here. Used to be Philippine Union College. And the Japanese came for him one day, just in his T-shirt and shorts, took him away. They've never seen him again. He was like 2 years old. And they were put in this Fort Santiago. I've been there. I've seen the rooms where they put these prisoners. He wrote songs, and his mother, the man's wife, would go down once in a while, maybe an hour drive down there, and would stand outside that prison and sing a song that only he would know, because it wasn't a well-known song, and then he would know that his wife would be out there singing. She never knew for sure if he ever heard or not. They did finally hear that he had died. And he'll see his father someday in heaven, but just not right. Not right. While I was there in the Philippines that time, there was a phone call. I got a cell phone call. My cell phone almost never worked, but it happened right then. And here was my church member saying, Pastor Dan, my wife is going to have her leg amputated. Diabetic. She's now passed away. One leg amputated, other leg amputated. Terrible, terrible, terrible. It's the worst part of pastoring is dealing with suffering. How do you deal with Japan? On my way here to the studio today, the lady texted me. And whereas we tape this now in Japan, there's terrible tsunami and earthquake and meltdown with the nuclear reactors. And she wanted to know, what can I do, Pastor Dan? What can I do? Can I go help? What can I give to? What can I do? You see the pictures are in front of the paper every day. There's terrible families and suffering, and maybe 10,000 have died, and they're scared. Why does God allow it? I went down to Jamaica to do evangelism, and we were building summer camp. And we worked about as hard of physical work as I've ever been. I'm a pastor. I don't do all that kind of physical work, but I'll do my share. We got out there hard, hot, trying to dig a trench for the footings for a building for a dorm at a summer camp. Hot, hard. You'd bring the sledgehammer down or the pickaxe, and it would knock out just a little sliver of dirt. We tried water, we tried post hole diggers, we tried everything we could think of. Finally got trench done, 50, 60 feet. Youth director came in the morning and said, you dug it in the wrong place. Had to do it all over again. Difficult. We would work all day, and then we would go into showers and try to clean up, and then go up to the mountains and preach for evangelism. Difficult week. And I can remember after working all day in the dirt and the mud, sermon to preach, another guy and I go into the shower, just these kind of open air, crazy little showers, trickle of water, and all of a sudden you're covered with soap, and the water stops. You've got 5 minutes to get on the bus to go. And you have to sort of shout it out, somebody turn the water back on. And I just said to myself, God, this isn't right. I'm down here sacrificing away from my family, away from my home church, working all day, trying to set an example for all the people to build. And I'm trying to go up and preach your message, and you can't even keep the water going for a few seconds. I was just teasing God, but once in a while the thought crosses your mind. Couldn't God do a little more? That's what the Psalms are full of. And David just plain gets mad at God. God, this is not good enough. You can do better than this. And David has a great sense of justice. Things ought to be a certain way. Bad things should happen to bad people, and good things should happen to good people. That's the way it ought to be, God. And he's just going to tell God. Psalm 10, verse 15, break the arm of the wicked and evil man. Psalm 18, verse 20, the Lord rewards me because of my righteousness. That's the way it's supposed to be, God. Bad things to bad people, good to me and to your people because of our righteousness. And why isn't it that way? God gets it all wrong. And he keeps letting bad things happen to good people and good things to bad people. And David just screams at God, why are you blessing them? You have no business blessing them. They curse you, they ignore you, they reject you, they don't follow your ways. They should be having justice. And we should be getting justice. We should be getting your blessings. Redeem and have vengeance against them and for our sake. Come on, God. And the Psalms are filled with David just pouring out his heart. You're on our side. Come on. And God puts it all into the Bible. We believe these are inspired, not because this is all of it God speaking, and this is the way it ought to be, but because it is human beings talking to their God, and it tells a part of the real story of people's relationships with God. And we're looking over the shoulder as people just sort of have it out with God. These are not spiritual giants. These are ordinary people, and doing the regular things with good days and bad days. Days when you get baptized, days when you get a gift, days when you hit a home run, and days when you go through a divorce and a foreclosure, and when your car doesn't start, and just stuff. And you'll say, God, couldn't you do a little more? Couldn't you step in a little bit? Martin Marty, he's a teacher at University of Chicago. He wrote a book on the Psalms, The Cry of the Absence. Talked about the summer days when God is close and you can feel God right there. And then there's the winter days where your prayers don't go above the ceiling. And where is God when you need him? C.S. Lewis, great apologetics for God, maybe the best. And then he writes A Grief Observed when his wife died of cancer, and says, God is always there when you don't need him, but when you need him, silence. And you can hear the locking of the door and the double bolt. Where is God? That's the Psalms. Walter Brueggemann calls it the core testimony and counter testimony. There are these verses that are the core testimony. You know, like Psalm 23, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's our expectation, core testimony. That's the way God ought to be all the time. But C.S. Lewis and Yancey says, if that's true, then how come the most religious people in America, the African Americans, are the poorest? Where is the blessing? Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. That's the counter testimony. Psalm 34, verse 7. The angel encampeth round about them who fear him, and delivereth them. We've all grown up with that memory verse. That's the core testimony. That's the way it ought to be all the time, God. And then we have the counter testimony. When it doesn't quite work out, and we say, where were the angels? Angels should be here. Where about the tsunami? What about these terrible 9/11? Psalm 37, verse 4, delight thyself in the Lord, and he will grant thee the desires of your heart. Yes, I've prayed that for hundreds of people. We talk about that with single people to say, you have a desire. Why isn't my desire fulfilled? People going through a divorce, other tragedies. Where's the desires being filled? And that's the counter testimony. Psalm 91, verse 7, where it says, 1,000 shall fall at thy right hand and 10,000 at thy side. It shall not come near nigh thee. And we believe someday that will be true. Just talked about this in my Revelation seminar. But today, not yet. Not yet. And so the Psalms have it all mixed up. It's not organized. We don't just have, here's this section and that section. We can have these passages right next to each other. We can have Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, surely goodness and mercy. That prepares the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Psalm 22, David just crying out like Christ on the cross. Why? My God, why hast thou forsaken me? This kind of torture. 2 chapters, because that's the way life is. One day, things are wonderful and it's sunny. The next day, where's God? Where were you, God? So we want to know how to make sense of this. The TV preachers will pick out the passages that they want to, the sunny passages, that God will make you rich, that God will heal you passages. But what about the others? Philip Yancey calls it the major key and the minor key, and we have both. We have spirituality in every key here in the Psalms. The Psalms give you permission to let it all out. Tell it all to God. When you're happy, tell it to God. When it doesn't seem to make sense, it's not fitting, tell it to God. And God can hear it all. I have one relative, I won't go over the details and just leave that between them and me. But one was going to get married again. I think this was going to be the 3rd wedding. And we were on a mission trip, and I saw that she was getting a wedding dress. And I said, what's happening? Well, I'm getting married. And I had been left out of the first 2. I went to the wedding and certainly was around, but as a pastor, but I wasn't involved in the choice. And now the 3rd one coming, and I wasn't involved again. And I just said to this relative of mine, I said, we've been close for 40 years. Let me in on this one. I'll not hurt you. You don't have to be afraid that if you let me in on this, that somehow I'll do you damage. But let's have Bible studies this time. Let's do premarital counseling this time. Let's just be sure that this is on the best foundation. And he is a terrific guy. I baptized him, and he is just a great, great human being. And I'm thrilled that he's in my family. And that's what God is saying in the Psalms. With whatever is going on in your life, let me in. I will not hurt you. I love you. I will not hurt you. Just let me in, the good and the bad. Psalm 23 and Psalm 22. Let me in. Let me into your life. And now we look at the different categories of Psalms. Can't look at them all. We just have a few minutes left. The hardest ones are called the imprecatory Psalms, these angry Psalms. The most famous one, of course, is Psalm 137, 8 and 9. Maybe the hardest passage in all the Bible, where it says, happy is the man who takes your babies and smashes them against a rock. I didn't know that was in there, and someone said, what about this? How can you have a God like this? And how can that be inspired, and why is that in the Bible? And of course, we would say this is not inspired because it is what God does. It is how some people feel. This thing of just vengeance, and you well up. And it's just David and the Bible writers being human. The imprecatory Psalms. Psalm 68, 21 to 23. God will shatter the heads of the enemies. Psalm 69, 22 to 29. Let them be blotted out of the book of the living. Psalm 58, verse 8. May they be like snails that dissolve into slime, like a baby born dead that never sees the light. Psalm 58, verse 9. In his fierce anger, God will blow them away while they are still living. Psalm 58:10, the righteous will be glad when they see sinners justly punished. They will wade through the blood of the wicked. In Psalm 58:11, people will say, there is indeed a God who judges the world. Come on, God. Imprecatory Psalms, do something and judge the wicked and get even. It's not inspired in the sense that God wants us to feel that way. It is inspired because God wants to have reality in the Bible. This is how human people feel as they are growing in their relationship with God. All right. Then we have prayers of lament, where David is begging God to rescue him. Do something, God. Rise up, stand up. Do something for your people. I need help, God. Prayers of lament. Psalm 89, verse 46. How long, O Lord, will you hide yourself forever? Psalm 88, verse 14. Why do you reject me? Hide your face from me. Psalm 69, verse 3. I am worn out, calling for help. My eyes fail, looking for my God. Psalm 10, verse 1. Why do you stand far off? Why? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? You've all grown up with these verses, just in pain. But if you haven't, you have felt it. Where is God when you need him? Prayers of lament. And some of the Messianic Psalms are like this, where David is just begging for God to bless him. And Jesus is so filled with the Psalms that it just came out on the cross. Why? Why have you rejected me? Messianic Psalms. And maybe you feel that way today, and we're just going to pray that God will bless you with the same answers that God is giving to David. The penitential Psalms, where he's repenting. Of course, Psalm 139, search me, O God, and know my heart. Whatever it is, God, I don't want anything to keep me between me and you. Take it all out, God. Search me, search me. Take it out. Nothing in between. There was a famous story, maybe you've heard it, about the bishop in the Philippines. He came to the cathedral to do Mass. You know how they'll say it, and God be with you, and the priest will say, and also with you. God be with you, also with you. He couldn't get the microphone to work. He said, finally he muttered under his breath, something's wrong. And the people just got into the rhythm, and also with you. Something's wrong. Yeah, something is wrong. We fall short. And David is the best at this, of just repenting. David wants to have a pure heart. He wants nothing in his heart that's going to be in the way. I have people come to me and say, Pastor Dan, they found a tumor. What should I do? I say, get it out. I know there's other modalities and protocols, but I just feel better. Get it out. Get it out. And then we have grace psalms, where David is just begging for grace. Psalm 51, God, purge me. Purge my heart. Have mercy on me, O God, according to your unfailing love. Blot out my transgressions. Psalm 51:7, purge me with hyssop, and I will be clean. Wash me, and I will be whiter than snow. This is when God does good things for bad people. You usually think about God, we want good things for good people, and bad things seem to happen to good people. Here it is good things for bad people. God is a God of grace. Wipe it clean. David knows grace after the terrible things he did. Then we have the wisdom psalms. David doesn't just celebrate grace. David loves the law. Psalm 19, Psalm 119. I love to meditate on your law. David just loves, he knows that God's laws are a gift to us. They are good news. How to live righteous life at its very best. And so David these are the wisdom psalms. Get the wisdom from God that is in the law. I delight to do your will, O God. Wisdom psalms. And then, of course, are the praise psalms, where David, just probably the best in history, who just has a heart of exuberant praise to God. David is a God of heart. David is a man of heart. And when God was looking for a new king, he said, God looks on the heart. David had the heart. He may not have everything else, but he had the heart for God. And it's ultimately what God wants, preaching that this week. David had sinned terribly before God. Murder and adultery. You cannot sin any worse than David. But he also has a soft heart before God. And just comes before God and says, God, take my heart. And he worships God. And God says, David is a man after my own heart. If you want things from God, then worship him for that very thing. If you're needing money, worship God by giving him money. If you want wisdom, then worship God for his wisdom. Stand in front of God. Whatever it is you need from God, worship him for that. If you need grace, worship him for his forgiveness. I was at a big mall the other day in the Philippines. They had a smorgasbord. You could go to any kind of food in the world and just stand there and say, I want an omelet or I want sushi, and they would give that to you. Stand in front of that part of God, that it is what you want and need, and worship him for that. And it opens up a place in your life for God to give you that very gift. And I would just like to finish by saying praise is a gift from God to us. People have wrestled with this question for many years, and as a young pastor, I did also. What is wrong with God who says, I want you to worship me? We said we're made for the glory of God, Isaiah 43:7. God made us to give us glory. It says he inhabits our praise. Isn't that wrong? But we understand that it is God's gift to us. It is what completes the gifts, C.S. Lewis says in his book on the Psalms. He just says, is that when you experience a great moment, you see a beautiful woman, it completes the appreciation to appreciate it. You go to a ball game and someone hits a home run and you stand and you cheer. It wouldn't be the same if you had to just sit there silent and never enjoy it. It completes the gift. And so it completes the gift that God has given to us when we worship him back. And I'll just finish with this. I can't repeat this. It's a moment in a church's history. I was at La Sierra University Church for 14 years. And we had a wonderful run with a pastor who's now took my place, Pastor Chris Olberg. Wonderful, fantastic pastor. And I'm honored to have been the one who called her into ministry, our children's pastor, off the charts. Incredible pastor. And she took a call to go be a senior pastor somewhere else, and now is back at La Sierra as the senior pastor. And just before she left, we pulled everyone on the platform, all the kids, all the people she'd baptized, all the people everywhere. And then we gave her a standing ovation. You could see her cry. We just wanted to bless her heart. That's what the Psalms are, when we bless the heart of God with our worship. Give God some worship today.